And just like that, 16 becomes 4, and now we're headed to Phoenix to crown ourselves a champion. But before we do that, let's reflect on how we got here. These playoffs might not have been as crazy as last year's, but they've still had their fair share of surprises, both good and bad, including another playoff party crasher in AJ Allmendinger. Some teams have exceeded expectations, some have met them, and others haven't even come close. I think you know who I'm talking about. So before we make our championship picks, let's take a look at those who fell just short of the grand prize. I'm really not sure why so many people had these guys advancing. Even in this age of parity and unpredictability, I knew they weren't going far. Sure, they've both had exceptional years by their own accords, but in the playoffs, that doesn't matter. You have to be on the same level as everybody else, and neither of these guys were even close. Better luck next year, fellas. Championship hangovers are a fickle thing. In the case of Jimmy Johnson, he drank plenty of water, got plenty of rest, and never felt a thing. Joey Logano is not Jimmy Johnson. As a whole, the season could have been worse, but a playoff run was barely even in the cards, let alone a title defense. The 22 crew has some major work to do in the offseason, especially if they want to continue their really strange streak. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but ever since the playoff format was adapted, Joey Logano has made the Final Four in every even-numbered year since 2014. Like I said, weird. With the way Stewart-Haas has been this year, I'm not at all surprised they didn't go far. But still, eliminated in the first round? I thought they could at least hold out till the second, but if these other teams have to go back to the drawing board, SHR might as well go back in time and just rebuild everything. They can't afford another season like this, and with 2 of their 4 drivers taking off for the golf course, they may be facing more curveballs than ever before. But hey, at least Riley Herbst won. Took him long enough. All things considered, that went better than I thought it would. I know this is KFB we're talking about, but I feel the need to remind everyone that this was his first year with a new team, new manufacturer, and new sponsors in 15 years. Just him finding victory lane was impressive enough, let alone making a run in the playoffs. And given the flashes of brilliance this team's shown to be capable of, things still look promising. If I was Rowdy Nation, I'd be excited to get back to Daytona. Ditto for this guy. In his second season as an owner-driver, he kicked it back to his days in the Blue Deuce, consistently showing himself to be one of the best drivers in the field. That being said, I think he definitely should have won a race by now. I thought for sure he could bring it home at Bristol or Dega or anywhere else for that matter, and with his teammate looking like a prime Matt Kenseth, it's a hard pill to swallow. I know there's a bigger prize looming in the distance, but if I'm Brad Keselowski, there's only one word on my mind heading into next year: win. The climb continues for the 23, as while they couldn't make it to victory lane, they've established themselves not only as threats for the playoffs, but as threats to go even further. Even after their elimination, they've remained one of the most consistent cars across the board, though I do worry. People will tell you about MJ's killer mentality, how he rarely, if ever, let a good opportunity to win slip. And Texas was a really good opportunity for Bubba. He's got to start seizing these chances, because who knows how many more he'll get. I secretly hoped that the pesky, annoying Shyster Ross would make his return this postseason, but alas, I have been greatly disappointed. And as a result, he gets eliminated much earlier than in the year before, which I don't think is cause for alarm necessarily, but could be a sign of a downward turn. Last season, it felt like the Trackhouse duo could win on just about any given weekend, but this year has just been kinda meh. Like many other teams, the house has some work to do heading into 2024. What a hell of a ride that was. I've probably said it before, but I'll say it some more. At the beginning of the year, who had Chris Buescher not only making the playoffs, but making a deep run and winning 3 races? He may not be driving the flagship, but it sure does feel like it, and it makes me uber excited to see how he'll perform next year, because it's been made official. The Roush 17 is back, and in a big way. I really thought this team had what it took to go all the way, and in the opening 2 races, those suspicions were confirmed, as Tyler Reddick would finish runner-up at Darlington and then 1 spot better at Kansas. That, however, seemed to be where 23XI peaked, and as their more experienced counterparts turned on the Jets, this team showed their youth and an inability to respond. Still, this guy continues to outdrive his equipment in every race he runs. I have a feeling he'll be back here. The Denny Hamlin villain arc is now fully underway, and while it is quite entertaining, it comes with a catch. The only way it can be justified is with a championship, and yet another year goes by as Hamlin remains ringless, though he does now hold the most double-edged record in the league. He is now the winningest driver to never win the championship. Oof. Given his week-to-week performance, he shows no signs of wavering, but this kid, who was once a 24-year-old phenom, is now almost 43, and with Harvick out the door and a few of his fellow veterans looking to follow suit, we have to start asking ourselves, how many more chances will he get?
Martin Truex Jr. will go from missing the playoffs, contemplating retirement, to not only winning the regular season championship, but winning the season championship.
Martin Truex Jr., will become a 2-time Cup Series champion?
I think right now I would say Truex. I believe he's been the most consistent. I think he and James Small are really clicking.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't primarily make this video with MTJ in mind, because in all my years, I have never seen a first seed, a championship favorite, collapse this badly. I'm not kidding when I tell you, it's like a damn switch flipped. Before the playoffs started, he only had 8 finishes outside the top 15 all year, but in the playoffs, he's only had 2 finishes inside the top 15. While his competitors are up front duking it out for wins each week, he's sitting at an abysmal average finish of 20th, with his best being 9th place at Vegas, which, if not for an abhorrent pit call, could have easily been a top 5. In August, I had him as my pick for the championship, but come September, I was just happy to see him make it out of the first round. And the worst part is, you can't even blame the playoff format, because with this level of late season collapse, he would be drowning every which way. No playoffs, he'd be 4th. Winston Cup points, he'd be 5th. In the chase, he'd be dead freaking last. After the horrors of 2022, I thought we had put our woes behind us, but little did I know the most painful losses were still yet to come. As I can honestly say without a doubt, in my near decade-long tenure as a Truex fan, these have easily been the hardest 9 races to watch of his whole career, getting whiplash from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows at the snap of a finger. As for who's to blame, I could point every which way, as pretty much every member of the team, including the driver, share at least a little blame. But in my eyes, there's only one true culprit. The guy who gave his driver used tires and didn't even tell him. The guy who constantly argues with him over the radio, and the guy who simply cannot strategize to save his own life, as virtually every strong, surefire run has been squandered for a head-scratching pit call. James Small has simply fallen short too many times, and although I'm sure he'll come back next year, I don't think he should. When he's on, but when he's off, he's more than just off. He's a glaring representation of just how far behind us the Furniture Row days are. And I can't help but wonder how many more wins Truex might have gotten if Cole Pearn never left the box. The season as a whole was still a step in the right direction, but if I was Martin, I would spit on that regular season trophy every chance I got. Just another year, another opportunity at a cup down the drain. And with that, we've reached the Championship 4, who might not have been the best drivers all year, but without a doubt have been the best drivers in these playoffs. For one of them, it'll be a shot at their second, and for the other 3, it'll be their first. So let's take a look at those who will be dueling in the desert. Just like last year, this team isn't even close to where it was in 21, but when you have a driver-crew chief combo like Larson and Daniels, you're only going to be kept from a second shot for so long. An opening round win at Darlington was a nice statement, but it was the Vegas win that cemented Larson as a major threat for the championship. And that momentum continued to roll into Homestead, until his controller disconnected. If it weren't for mistakes like these, Kyle Larson could easily be considered the best driver in NASCAR right now, which is why heading to Phoenix, his main mission should be to have a clean, consistent, mistake-free race. In the spring, he showed himself to be one of the strongest, save for Kevin Harvick and some late race chicanery. If he can put together an identical run, we could see Young Money walk away with his second championship. Of all these guys, my expectations were lowest for YRB. Not because he's been bad by any means, but he's never gotten this far. This will be his first Championship 4 appearance, but the more I think about it, the more I see this as a golden opportunity. In stark contrast to Truex, Blaney's playoff finishes have been pretty good, and if a third win at Dega wasn't enough, he would pick up his first grandfather clock and lock himself into the final round. He now rolls in with all the momentum in the world, and I also think it's important to remember that besides Logano, Blaney had the best car in the championship race last year. All he has to do is run it back and shock the NASCAR world with an upset for the ages. If you want to talk consistency, look no further than Christopher Bell. While it hasn't made many headlines, he's quietly had a career year with 6 poles and 2 wins, one of which came in a shocker at Homestead, where when the rest of his team crumbled, the 20 car rose above, and now he has his second consecutive shot at the Cup title. Like Blaney, a Bell championship would come as a bit of an upset, but he's already been here before. And with that experience being so recent, he could be just as, if not more lethal than the others. But to do it, he'll have to beat the other 3, including the most successful driver all year and my personal pick for the championship. The title might be decided in just one race, but it still helps to be there for the other 35. And no one has made a bigger splash all season than William Byron in the 24. Most top 10s, most top 5s, most wins, best average finish, this guy has locked it down in every conceivable way. And his wins have come from just about everywhere, from the high banks of Atlanta to the road course at Watkins Glen, a slew of 1.5 milers, and wouldn't you know it, Phoenix in the spring. This will be his first championship appearance, but with the year he's had, it might as well be his 10th. We already know what Hendrick Motorsports can do, but as for Rudy Fugle, In just his 3rd season as a Cup crew chief, he's put together an all-time great year. And while his driver is still a young buck, they've both shown the tenacity and drive of seasoned veterans. It's been 8 years since the 24 car got this close to the Cup, and maybe, with just one more good race, Willie B can go a little bit further. So who will take it all? The sovereign of the save, the prince of podcasting, the denizen of dirt, or the boss of big hats? Tell me your pick in the comments below, and I'll see y'all on Sunday.